There's a force shaping your thoughts, choices, and relationships, one you can't see, name, or explain. It moves in silence beneath your everyday awareness, influencing what you desire, whom you're drawn to, and even the fears you try to ignore. This hidden influence isn't fate or random chance. It's an archetype, deep symbolic patterns embedded in the unconscious mind, and it may not be working in your favor. In this video, we're going to uncover the secret psychological blueprint that's been directing your life without your permission. Drawing from the powerful insights of Carl Jung, we'll explore how this archetype operates in the shadows of your psyche, and how, once recognized, it can be integrated to awaken profound personal transformation. If you've ever felt like something invisible is pulling the strings, this is your invitation to see it clearly. Leave a comment saying, "I am ready to reclaim control of my life." Carl Jung's analytical psychology proposes that much of what drives human behavior lies hidden in the unconscious. Within this deep psychic reservoir live the archetypes, universal, inherited patterns of thought and behavior. These archetypes shape the ways we perceive ourselves, others, and the world, often without our conscious awareness. One of the most compelling aspects of Jung's work is his revelation that these archetypes are not passive symbols. They are active forces that can dominate and distort our lives when left unexamined. At the core of this influence is the concept of projection, where we unconsciously attribute our own inner realities, desires, fears, and judgments onto people and situations around us. Often these projections originate from an unintegrated shadow, the part of the psyche where we store all that we reject or deny in ourselves. This shadow is frequently shaped by a dominant, unconscious archetype, which can secretly govern our choices, beliefs, and reactions. Jung believed that the path to wholeness, what he called individuation, requires recognizing and integrating these hidden parts. It involves making the unconscious conscious, confronting the shadow, and discerning which archetypal patterns are at play in our inner world. This includes reconciling the opposites within us, the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine energies that reside in every psyche. When we resist this process, we often find ourselves repeating self-sabotaging patterns, stuck in relationships, roles, or emotional states that feel imposed upon us rather than chosen. Understanding the hidden archetype at work in your life is the first step toward breaking free from its control. By bringing it into awareness, you reclaim your agency, restore inner balance, and move closer to becoming your true self, unburdened, undivided, and awake. Archetypes do not arise from our individual experiences alone. They are much older than any single human life. According to Carl Jung, archetypes are primordial patterns embedded in the collective unconscious, a shared psychic inheritance of all humanity. These ancient structures have evolved over millennia, passed down through generations, forming the psychological blueprint that shapes how we perceive and engage with the world. They appear across cultures in myths, symbols, dreams, and spiritual traditions, pointing to their universal and timeless nature. The collective unconscious contains archetypes such as the hero, the mother, the trickster, the sage, and the shadow. Each of these represents a specific psychological function or existential experience. They are not personalities, but rather core patterns of energy and meaning. At birth, the psyche is not a blank slate, but a vessel already imprinted with these structures. As life unfolds, our personal unconscious begins to develop, shaped by our upbringing, relationships, traumas, and environment. This layer of the unconscious interacts with the collective one, allowing certain archetypes to activate more strongly depending on our unique context. For example, someone raised in a household lacking emotional safety may unconsciously over-identify with the warrior archetype to create a sense of inner protection. Another person might be dominated by the caregiver archetype, seeking worth through service, especially if early validation came only through being helpful. These patterns are not chosen consciously. They arise spontaneously in response to unmet needs, unconscious fears, or cultural conditioning. They begin to shape how we relate to authority, love, success, and even spirituality. While archetypes are neutral in essence, the dominant archetype in a person's psyche can become problematic if it operates unconsciously. When we are unaware of which archetype is leading us, we lose the ability to discern whether we are acting out of inner truth or unconscious programming. This is when an archetype ceases to be a guide and becomes a tyrant, leading us into repetitive emotional loops unhealthy relationships, and life decisions that seem fated or compulsive. One of the key mechanisms that reinforces an archetype's dominance is emotional imprinting during early development. Children unconsciously absorb the behaviors and emotional patterns of caregivers, and these impressions often mirror or trigger latent archetypes. For instance, a child who internalizes a parent's unexpressed grief might develop a deep identification with the wounded healer archetype, constantly tending to others while avoiding their own unresolved pain. The unconscious mind selects the archetypal energy that best matches the emotional narrative of the environment, reinforcing it through repetition. Cultural influences also play a crucial role. Media, religion, education, and societal expectations reinforce certain archetypes while suppressing others. In some cultures, the warrior is exalted, while the mystic is marginalized. In others, the martyr is revered, and the rebel is shamed. These collective values condition individuals to suppress parts of themselves that don't align with the dominant cultural narrative, making them vulnerable to archetypal possession. The more we repress, the more the unconscious compensates, often by projecting the repressed archetype onto others, or by developing inner conflict that manifests as anxiety, depression, or self-sabotage. Moreover, the archetypes that dominate the personal unconscious often resist change. They build psychic structures around themselves, attracting experiences that validate their continued reign. This is why certain life patterns seem impossible to break, because they are not just habits, but manifestations of an active archetype. We don't just repeat behaviors, we reenact symbolic roles imprinted in our inner mythology. To begin recognizing which archetype may be silently directing your life, observe your emotional triggers, recurring dream symbols, role models you idolize, and roles you resist. Archetypes often speak through fascination and aversion. What you envy, admire, or detest in others usually reflects an archetype at work within you, either embraced or exiled. By mapping these reactions, you begin to trace the psychological fingerprint of the hidden force within. Uncovering the origin and structure of these archetypes is the first step toward reclaiming your inner authority. Without this awareness, we remain actors in a script we didn't write, repeating scenes and roles passed down through ancestral memory and collective expectation. But with it, we gain the power to question the narrative, revise the role, and ultimately choose a more conscious way of being. The shadow is one of the most vital and misunderstood concepts in Jungian psychology. It represents the parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or disown, qualities that the conscious ego cannot accept as me. But what remains hidden does not disappear. It gathers power in the unconscious and becomes a potent force that influences our behavior from beneath the surface. What few realize is that the shadow often forms in response to a dominant archetype. It reflects what the dominant part of our psyche fears, represses, or avoids. When an archetype becomes dominant, it imposes a kind of psychic hierarchy. Everything that doesn't align with its energy or narrative is pushed into the unconscious. For instance, a person unconsciously possessed by the hero archetype may suppress vulnerability, neediness, or the desire to surrender, qualities that contradict the heroic image of strength and control. Over time, these repressed traits form the shadow, becoming emotionally charged and prone to eruption when triggered. This means the stronger the archetypes hold, the more deeply split the psyche becomes. This dynamic sets up a psychological tension. The more we identify with one side of our nature, the more violently the opposite side is rejected. Jung emphasized that the ego's one-sided identification, especially with culturally approved roles or virtues, creates the very conditions for the shadow to grow. The more we strive to be good, selfless, competent, or invulnerable, the more we exile our envy, anger, fear, and desire for power. But the psyche demands wholeness, not perfection. The shadow does not exist to punish us. It exists to balance us. It carries the aspects of the self that we need in order to become fully human. This is where the hidden archetype reveals its true power. It doesn't just shape our ideals, it actively defines what must be repressed to maintain its dominance. Thus, the shadow is not random. It is a direct reflection of what the dominant archetype refuses to integrate. If someone over-identifies with the sage archetype, their shadow might be deeply emotional, irrational, and impulsive. If someone is ruled by the caregiver, The shadow may contain rage, selfishness, or the desire to be free from responsibility. The traits we condemn in others are often the very ones we've buried in ourselves, projected outward as judgment or resentment. This projection is a key mechanism through which the hidden archetype maintains control. By disowning shadow aspects, we fail to see them within and instead see them in others. We might find ourselves surrounded by people who seem irrational, selfish, or aggressive, never realizing that our encounters are mirrors showing us the rejected parts of ourselves. These patterns are not coincidences, they are invitations to confront the archetype's blind spots. One of the most revealing exercises in shadow work is tracking emotional overreactions. When your response to a situation or person is disproportionately intense, whether it's attraction, disgust, envy, or contempt, it's usually your shadow reacting, not your conscious self. These intense responses are the voice of the exiled archetype knocking at the door, asking to be acknowledged. And within every shadow reaction lies the encoded energy of the hidden archetype, trying to return to consciousness. It's also crucial to understand that the shadow carries positive potential, not just repressed negativity. Many people hide their ambition, brilliance, sensuality, or assertiveness because these qualities were not welcomed in childhood or conflicted with their dominant archetypal identity. Someone raised to embody the innocent might bury their power and sexuality in the shadow. Someone shaped by the ruler archetype might suppress their longing for rest, tenderness, or creativity. What we repress is not always dangerous. It's often exactly what we need to become whole. The journey into the shadow is not a descent into darkness, but a descent into authenticity. It is the courageous act of reclaiming what was once lost, shamed, or denied. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. By examining the shadow, we gain a mirror that reflects not only what we fear, but what the dominant archetype within us fears to confront. That confrontation marks the beginning of freedom. Ultimately, the shadow is not the enemy. It is the key to dismantling the unconscious control of the archetype that has been shaping our life from behind the scenes. When we face it with honesty and curiosity, we don't just integrate hidden parts. We dethrone the inner tyrant and begin the process of truly knowing ourselves. One of the most powerful tools of the unconscious mind is projection, the act of attributing our internal contents, especially those we do not consciously recognize or accept, onto people and situations outside of us. Jung described projection as a kind of psychological displacement, where aspects of the self, particularly from the shadow and hidden archetypes, are seen as existing in others rather than within. While this may seem like a defensive strategy, it is in fact a deeply structured process by which the dominant archetype sustains its control over our lives without detection. Projections serve to protect the ego's identity. When a person is unconsciously ruled by an archetype, anything that threatens to destabilize that identification, such as conflicting emotions or traits, gets projected outward. A person living under the rule of the lover archetype, for example, might suppress rationality or independence, perceiving emotionally detached people as cold, cruel, or heartless. Another, overtaken by the ruler archetype, might project laziness and chaos onto those who resist authority or structure, without realizing these traits reflect a suppressed part of themselves. Through projection, we not only distance ourselves from the qualities we fear or disapprove of, but we also unconsciously recreate the archetype's narrative in our daily lives. We begin to see the world through its lens, interpret relationships through its themes, and engage in situations that mirror its myth. A person consumed by the martyr archetype may find themselves repeatedly in relationships where they are undervalued or used, failing to recognize how their own unconscious expectation of suffering keeps them in those cycles. This isn't bad luck or coincidence. It is the unconscious orchestrating life events to reinforce an inner drama. The projection mechanism can also work in seemingly positive ways, such as infatuation or idolization. When we fall in love quickly, intensely, and irrationally, it often means we've projected an inner archetypal ideal, often the anima or animus, onto another person. This inner image of the ideal feminine or masculine gets cast onto a partner who appears to embody everything we have longed for or felt incomplete without. But this illusion cannot last. Eventually, the real person breaks through the projection and disillusionment sets in. What remains is the work of recognizing that the qualities we adored were reflections of something within us, not external gifts granted by another. Projections are not random. They are deeply symbolic. Every person who triggers us, attracts us, or unsettles us becomes a living mirror of our inner world. Jung wrote that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. But this only happens if we are willing to interrupt the projection cycle, withdraw the projection, and ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? This question requires humility and courage, because it often reveals that we are not who we believed ourselves to be. The hidden archetype survives through projection because projection keeps it unexamined. It externalizes what should be internalized and understood. When we're caught in projection, we cannot see the pattern. We are living it, embodying it, and unknowingly feeding it. The archetype thrives on emotional reactivity, and projection is its primary fuel. As long as we believe they are the problem, our partner, our boss, society, we remain blind to the fact that these outer figures are reflecting our own psychological material. Breaking this cycle begins with cultivating inner reflection and symbolic awareness. Keeping a dream journal can reveal recurring archetypal images. Exploring persistent emotional triggers can unmask the inner narratives we're reliving. Writing about our attractions and aversions can uncover the hidden ideals or fears we've projected onto others. And most of all, practicing psychological responsibility, owning what is ours, starts to free us from the compulsion to repeat the same relational dynamics and internal conflicts. The ultimate goal is not to eliminate projection. It is a natural part of human psychology, but to become conscious of it. Once we see the archetype operating through projection, we begin to loosen its grip. We stop confusing the outer world with our inner reality. We start to choose responses rather than react unconsciously. We begin to see relationships more clearly, with less distortion, and we slowly recover our power from the archetype that once used projection to live through us. Awareness interrupts the spell. Reflection weakens the script, and each time we reclaim a projection, we reclaim a piece of ourselves. Individuation is the cornerstone of Carl Jung's psychological model, a lifelong process of becoming who you truly are by integrating the unconscious into conscious awareness. It is not about becoming perfect or morally superior, but rather about becoming whole. To individuate is to embrace all parts of the psyche, light and shadow, masculine and feminine, logic and emotion, strength and vulnerability. Central to this journey is breaking free from archetypal possession, where a single archetype unconsciously dominates your personality, choices, and emotional life. Archetypal possession is often mistaken for authenticity. When someone says, "That's just who I am," they may actually be speaking from the voice of a dominant archetype that has fused with their ego. This fusion creates an identity structure that feels absolute, but is, in truth, rigid and incomplete. The archetype shapes behavior, dictates emotional responses, and sets unconscious expectations for the world. While it can offer a sense of purpose or belonging, over time it begins to limit growth, distort perception, and repeat unexamined patterns. The individuation process begins the moment you become aware that something deeper is controlling your life. It often arises during crises, emotional breakdowns, relationship ruptures, career dissatisfaction, or a profound inner emptiness. These moments are not failures, they are invitations. The breakdown of the old self is the first stage of freeing the psyche from the archetype's hold. As the dominant archetype weakens, its polarities rise to the surface. The shadow emerges, projections intensify, and long-forgotten aspects of the self start demanding recognition. The work of individuation is not linear. It involves a cyclical movement between confrontation and integration. First, the hidden patterns must be identified, often through dreams, emotional triggers, fantasies, or symbolic imagery. Then comes the painful task of differentiating the ego from the archetype. This means stepping back from your automatic roles and asking, is this truly me or is this a story I inherited? It requires questioning long-held beliefs, emotional reactions, and habitual identities that no longer serve your authentic development. This process also involves integrating the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine energies within the psyche. When one of these is repressed or undeveloped, it skews perception and behavior, often leading to projection or relational conflict. A man who disowns his anima may become emotionally distant, overly rational, or drawn to emotionally expressive partners in whom he sees what he lacks. A woman disconnected from her animus may feel powerless, dependent, or compelled to find her strength in others. By acknowledging and developing these inner opposites, you restore balance and deepen your inner complexity. Symbolic practices are essential tools in individuation. Engaging with dreams, active imagination, art, mythology, or nature allows the unconscious to speak in its own language. These practices bypass rational analysis and tap into the deeper wisdom of the psyche. Often, the unconscious will offer images or narratives that reveal where you are in your journey, whether you are still under the influence of a dominant archetype, in the throes of shadow confrontation, or approaching a new synthesis of self. As integration deepens, a more fluid identity begins to emerge, one that can draw from various archetypes without being ruled by any single one. You may still express the lover, the warrior, the healer, or the sage, but not as fixed roles. Instead, they become tools, modes of being that serve the whole rather than control it. This inner freedom is the mark of individuation, the ability to navigate life not from unconscious compulsion, but from conscious choice. True liberation from archetypal possession doesn't mean eradicating the archetype. It means reclaiming your power to relate to it consciously. When you are no longer fused with the archetype, you can see it as part of you, but not all of you. You can use its strengths, temper its flaws, and recognize its influence without being consumed by it. This conscious relationship transforms the archetype from a puppet master into an ally. Ultimately, individuation is the art of becoming inwardly sovereign. It is the act of remembering who you are beneath the layers of programming, trauma, and inherited psychic patterns. It is a return to center, not to perfection or idealism, but to authenticity. As you walk this path, you begin to live not as a reflection of unconscious forces, but as an integrated, evolving self, capable of love, creativity, purpose, and profound inner peace. The forces that shape your life from the shadows are not random. They are ancient, powerful, and deeply personal. Archetypes live within you, guiding your desires, fears, and decisions, often without your awareness. But once seen, they can no longer rule you. You've now taken the first steps toward recognizing the hidden archetype that has shaped your path, understanding how it formed, how it hides in the shadow, and how it sustains itself through projection. This journey is not easy, but it is essential. The process of individuation, of integrating all parts of your psyche, is the path to true freedom. When you begin to live from a place of conscious awareness rather than unconscious compulsion, everything changes. Relationships become clearer, choices become intentional, and your life becomes aligned with who you truly are, not who you were conditioned to be. Now is the time to step forward with clarity and courage. Subscribe to the channel and join a community committed to deep psychological transformation. Watch the video on the screen now for your next step into self-discovery. Your unconscious is waiting to be heard. Don't let it speak for you. Let it speak with you.